I've been asked to give you a brief history of our property, and when I'm through, Kirsten Stanton, who is a member of our original building committee, and Rick Bladwig, who is currently the chairman of our building committee, will be available to answer any questions. We began to think seriously about acquiring some property for our church as far back as 15 years ago, and we were initially interested in an excellent looking piece of property at the far end of Wyoming Street. The land out there is flat and level. It's right at the edge of the desert. It's a good location, just down Wyoming Street, not far past Bethany Baptist Church. We appeared before the city council to see if we could involve them in a purchase of that property. At the city council meeting, there were two homeowners that came in to complain. One of them said that building a church out there would create unnecessary traffic problems. And another homeowner adjacent to that property said that if we built a church there, it would prevent desert tortoises from coming into her yard. Apparently, the city council listened to those complaints and did not want to enter into an agreement with us to purchase that piece of property. Instead, the city suggested that we take a look at a piece of property at the far end of Utah Street next to the Boulder City Cemetery. So we did. It seemed to be a good possibility. There were over 5 acres involved, which would be plenty of land. It's a good location for a church right next to a cemetery. And it was considered to be a good possibility and a decent price for the property. So we ended up purchasing 2.94 acres from the city for $195,000. The property that we own today is that piece of property. We were also given a first option to purchase an additional 2 acres immediately adjacent to that property to the south if we wanted to. In retrospect, I think we were not fully aware of what we were getting into. There was a huge ditch, culvert, wash that ran down the center of the property, and before we could do anything, we were required to install a huge underground culvert, completely cover the wash, and level the property. We did that at the cost of approximately $240,000. In addition to that, we were told that we could not begin to build on the property until we paid for perimeter improvements. That would include sidewalks, gutters, curbs, and street lighting around the property. So I recall correctly, that was approximately another $220,000. That third step, that third project has not been done yet. We're still holding on that. In addition, there were a number of conditions involved in purchasing that piece of property. First of all, the city and we agreed that if this church were not to succeed, if we were to go belly up as a church, the property would automatically become the property of the United Methodist Church Desert Southwest Conference. Another condition was that we could sell the property back to the city of Boulder City, but for no more than the amount that we had invested in the property. A third condition was that the county of Clark, regardless of the fact that we are nonprofit, decided that we had to pay property tax on the property at the tune of $5,000 a year. That condition has changed. We no longer pay that, although we did at first, and are currently receiving rebates from the county of Clark for that money. Another condition was that we could sell the property to someone other than the city but only if it were a nonprofit group such as another church. Another condition was that when and if we ever do build on the property, we cannot build over the buried culvert. That the buildings would have to be to one side or the other from that culvert. I think that was all of the conditions. I would like you to know that we do currently have an active and open building fund. We happily accept donations into that fund at any time from anybody in any amount for any reason. The money in that building fund is actually kept in 4 separate accounts. We have the Ed Jones Contractors account, which currently holds $172,000. These are approximate figures, but pretty close. $172,000 in the Ed Jones account. We have a city performance bond, which currently stands at about $70,500. A construction savings account with $28,000, and another $18,600 invested in the Desert Southwest Conference Foundation. That's a total of $289,100 set aside at this time. I think that's pretty much where we stand. Yes?
Brian, just point out we have no debt. We didn't go into debt for that property.
That's correct.
We have no debt now.
That's correct. That's correct.
I have 2 questions. Oh, Joy, go ahead.
Has there ever been any discussion of selling it?
Yes.
Yes, as a matter of fact, we have been in discussion over the last few years as to whether we want to continue on with plans to build on that property, or whether we might want to take some other action, as an example, acquiring this facility. There's a lot of money involved in either case, so your church council administrative board would have to deal with those questions and decide what we wanted to do at that point. But the amount of money that we have invested is not lost. It's either there in those accounts or it's there in equity in the property itself.
So if it wanted to be sold back to the city, I mean, do you think they'd still be open to buy it?
I can't answer that. I don't know what the city of Boulder City does sometimes.
I know they're much happier getting rid of things than acquiring them back, but one of the questions that came in last week, what effect did the 2008 crash have on the development of the property? I don't know if that's something you want to answer, or Rick, is that something that...
Kirsten, and take it over from here.
Thank you, Brian.
You bet.
Chuck?
If we happen to split, will we be able to keep that money?
There was a stipulation, there was a discussion about the churches that exit, what happens to their property. As a connectional church, we own property, our church, but it belongs to the bigger church. So if we, separate from this plan going on, there are churches occasionally who say, we choose not to be United Methodist anymore. And so we're gonna pick up and we're gonna move down the street. In those situations, the property stays with the global church. There is a stipulation, I haven't read it, I don't know the details of it, that churches that are exiting, there are some cases where we would go, our property would go with us. So what did the 2008 crash affect?
Is this on?
Yes.
I don't believe the 2008 crash had anything to do with it. We bought the property in 2006. About 2010, we began the design, the work on the property. In 2011 is when we began. And and did the land work that we've done. So the crash in 2008 really didn't have anything to do with it unless, unless it reduced members' incentives to add.
Sure. Have we given up the dream of building a church building? And the second question on this one, are we going to try to sell the property? So I'll let you share what you know about current and future
I
plans.
certainly haven't given up on a dream. I've worked on it for 10 years, so the dream really has to be funded by the congregation. Okay, so we can't do it without adequate funds. The church is completely designed, and the land is ready to build on. All of the land work we did was to put the pads down and be ready to build. The quotes in 2012 for the building is $1 million. And the designs are all available. We have models, we have pictures, we have a lot. If anybody wants to see it, I can bring it anytime, or I can even email information if people want to see it.
I just might mention that there is additional money that we have invested in that also. Obviously, we spent thousands of dollars to hire the architect to draw up those plans. And then on top of that, the entire piece of property has been sprayed to meet dust abatement requirements. And we have fenced the entire property in with a 4-foot high cyclone fence for liability reasons.
Right.
So we actually have quite a bit invested in that project so far.
I think, if I could also interject, one of the conditions that we're looking at is whether or not the size of our congregation today, whether we're large enough to be able to maintain a building. So if we were gifted $1 million and we could plant a building and move over there, the cost of maintaining it is greater than our expenses where we are now. And so, you know, part of what we're looking at from the council point of view is proper timing, and having a larger church community that could support a building. That's part of the equation as well. So, and that lands on all of us. You know, who do you know who needs a community like ours? Who do you know that you would want to invite to join in community and in relationship with Jesus Christ through a local church? So that's a responsibility we all hold.
Yeah, Brian was saying we have $289,000 right now in investments. That's enough to do the next phase of the project, which is the required infrastructure, widening the streets, bringing the utilities down to the property, past the property, to the end of our property, and putting street lights, sidewalks, and all that kind of stuff in. It's going to cost in that area right around the $289,000. The reason we haven't done it is because we've had some considerations about different ways of doing the building. The building we have right now is a single building. It's about 10,000 square feet. That allows us a sanctuary with the church office, plus meeting rooms, Sunday school rooms, restrooms, everything. So that it was designed as a secure building, because at the time we did it, we had more children in the church. So it was designed to make sure that the children were protected at all times, so that we could lock down the church if necessary. Since that time, we've had some group meetings where we looked at following the Desert Springs approach, which is a campus approach to the building, and building it in sections and landscape separate buildings. And so because of that idea of not trying to take that $1 million bite, but trying to take a smaller bite, we haven't brought the utilities on the property because we don't know where they go, because that's up in the air. So until we have an idea of exactly what we're gonna do, we do know that to bring the utilities on and do that required infrastructure work, we're gonna have $0 left. So until we have a plan and, the wherewithal, it looks like that congregation again will support it, because you remember, we've spent $500,000. That's because the congregation supported that $500,000. We haven't had any support for quite a few years. So when we all agree that we want to start building, and we get support to start building, then we can decide what we need in the way of electricity, sewer, water, whatever we need for utilities, where they're gonna go, where we're gonna put the buildings, and then we can get started.
Excellent. I'm gonna, close this part, thank you, sir, so that our corned beef doesn't totally get dried out. I know, and some of you are thinking, can we be done and move on to more important things like communion? Yes, yes, we can. I have one more question. Why are there no more pew Bibles? The Bibles are on the, cart over here, and if you would like to have a pew Bible, you're welcome to pick it up in the morning. Since we're projecting the scripture on the screen, we decided not to put them out everywhere, but you are more than welcome to pick one up as you come in. So there is that question. JJ has one question. Yes, sir.
I just had a comment about your comment earlier about your black shoes.
Yes.
And I wanted to say, wear them because they're holy.
So any of you, have you ever wondered what you need to pray for me? Well, let me just close this, this part of our worship. I want us all to feel pride in the decisions that we have made over the years to be united in love. It is a decision that we all have made. It's part of our leadership team. It's part of all of us as we join together every Sunday morning to worship God and to be in community together. We've, all of us, made a commitment to participate in what we do in this church for God's glory. And we do all we can to support the ministries of our church. Now, I can tell you in every organization, probably what's most consistent is change. And there's movement of new people coming in and some folks needing to go. And it's important to remember that as we continually change and grow and move, it's as we do in our bodies and as the body of Christ. I'm personally thankful that it's Christ that's at the head. And when we do this church thing right, then we allow God, the head, to lead us, and we will follow. We don't have to have all the answers for what lies ahead, what we'll do with our property, whether we keep it or sell it or build. Our job is to listen to God and to follow God's lead. And whatever it is that God is calling us forward to, and I believe God is always calling us forward, our job is to respond with love and with trust. And when we know that we're following God and God is in it, we also know that God will provide us the tools that we need to make it happen, whatever that is. Now, our church's future is not in my hands. It's not in your hands. It's not in our leaders' hands. God is our pilot, and it is God who is guiding us to make good and godly decisions about our property, about what happens next because of the traditional plan. And I'm glad, because boy, sisters and brothers, if it was up to us, we would mess it up for sure. Now, for some folks, change can bring anxiety. But I'm here to tell you that we have a God greater than any anxiety we may be experiencing. because God has our back. And as we move forward, we do so with the knowledge that God will never leave us nor forsake us, and God will guide us to find love, real, true love in all the right